Buckle up. We have a lot to cover, from the wrap-up of the Edmonton series to previewing the Vegas series, and then talking about the result of game number 1, since clearly I am recording this after game number 1, but here we go. Welcome to From Center Ice, the shorthanded episode. Normally I would intro it as the shorty episode, but even though that does stand for shorthanded, I have a feeling this one is going to be a little longer, so it just seems weird to introduce it as a shorty. Anyway, my name is Courtney, and I am still in shock from that qualifying series, and maybe in a little bit of shock from last night as well, but for a different reason. So let's just jump into this Edmonton series, first of all. Just get that one over with. But now that I've had a little bit of time to process it, I'm here to talk about it. So, the Chicago Blackhawks beat the Edmonton Oilers and are officially in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that first round was just a qualifying round, and if you lost, you were technically not in the playoffs, and if you won, you were in the playoffs. So, it's 2020, nothing makes sense, the Blackhawks are in the playoffs. I don't know. And I don't really remember how we got here. I feel like I'm still in a bit of a daze. So, I have a little bit of a recap going over the goal scorers from the 4 games. Game number 1 was Saturday, August 1st. It's hard to believe that it's only been 11 days. It's 12 days. It's the 12th now. But, jeez, that's beyond crazy in my mind. So, in Game 1, the Blackhawks beat the Oilers 6-4. Of course, the first goal of the first period was scored by Connor McDavid and assisted by Draisaitl and Clefbaum. That was scored 2.5 minutes into the first period, so we started off the series with a very sad bang. But then, we had 4 unanswered goals by the Blackhawks. So we had Dylan Strome unassisted, which was the butt goal, right off of Mike Smith's butt into the net, which was the best goal ever. Jonathan Toews assisted by Dominic Kubalik and Patrick Kane on the power play. Brandon Saad assisted by Olli Maatta and Dominic Kubalik. Jonathan Toews assisted by Dominic Kubalik and Saad. So clearly, Dominic Kubalik had one hell of a game. And that was all just in the first period of game number 1. The second period, Leon Draisaitl scored first, because that's just what Edmonton kept doing, kept scoring the first goal of every damn period, which was assisted by Connor McDavid, because of course, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Then we had 2 goals by Dominic Kubalik. The first one, assisted by Keith and Doc on the power play. The second one, assisted by Keith and Toews, also on the power play. I don't remember a game where the Blackhawks power play has looked that good, but I don't know that we'll ever see it ever again. And then the third period, of course, Edmonton scores first, and they score second, and the Blackhawks don't score at all, but that is okay because they had put in enough pucks to win that game 6-4. Game number 2 was on Monday, August 3rd, and the Oilers beat the Blackhawks 6-3. So they saw our 6 goals in game number 1, and they said, well, we can do that too. First period, Connor McDavid scores the first goal. This was a trend. But not only did he score the first goal of the game in the first period, he scored it 19 seconds into the first period. So, yet another sad bang, maybe the saddest bang of all. And that was assisted by Darnell Nurse and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. The second goal of the game was scored by none other than Connor McDavid himself, assisted by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins 4 minutes into the first period. I really don't know how the Hawks came back from this. Patrick Kane did put up a goal in the first period, scored by Alex DeBrincat and Slater Cuckoo. On to the second, where Edmonton scored first, 1 minute and 44 seconds into that period. Then we had 2 goals by the Blackhawks, one by Slater Cuckoo, assisted by Alex DeBrincat and Kirby Dach. The second one scored by Olli Maatta, assisted by Kirby Dach and Patrick Kane. And then to round out that second period, we have another goal from Connor McDavid, assisted by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Alex Chiasson. On to the third period, guess who scores first? Edmonton. And they also score second, so we had 2 goals, one by James Neal, one by Alex Chiasson, no more by the Blackhawks, and they lost that game. So then the series was tied, and I was losing. I can't even say I was losing hope. I had lost hope. The Edmonton Oilers got their win. I figured they would just go on to win 2 more back-to-back and kick us out. But somehow that's not how that happened. So Game 3 was on Wednesday, August 5th, and the Blackhawks won 4-3. The first period, the first goal of the game was scored by... That was a trick question. It was scored by the Blackhawks. Olli Maatta, assisted by Patrick Kane and Matthew Highmore. The second goal was scored by Edmonton, which was Leon Draisaitl, assisted by Tyler Ennis. And the third goal of that period was Jonathan Toews, assisted by Kirby Dach and Alex DeBrincat. Moving on to the second period, this time it's not a trick question. Edmonton scored first. They also scored second. So it was Leon Draisaitl, assisted by Matt Benning, and Connor McDavid, assisted by Draisaitl and Nugent-Hopkins. You are hearing a lot of the same names being mentioned for Edmonton. In the third period, we had a Matthew Highmore goal, assisted by Slater Cuckoo and Olli Maatta. And if you recall the goal, he was standing in the slot and just happened to tip Slater Cuckoo's shot into the net past Mikko Koskinen. And the game-winning goal was scored by none other than Captain Jonathan Toews, assisted by Connor Murphy and Duncan Keith. Sort of like Highmore's goal, but a little less intentional. I can't even say he tipped the puck. The puck went off of Toews into the net. I believe it went off of his knee, but they don't ask how, just how many, and the Blackhawks came away with that win 4-3. On to Game 4. Friday, August 7th, the Blackhawks won that game 3-2. Going into the first period, Edmonton scored first. Josh Archibald assisted by Connor McDavid and Darnell Nurse, and that was 45 seconds into the first period. The Blackhawks did not have good starts in their games against Edmonton. It was kind of terrible to watch, but, that series is over now. The next 2 goals were scored by the Blackhawks, thankfully. Brandon Saad, assisted by Connor Murphy and Jonathan Toews. Then another Matthew Highmore goal, assisted by Duncan Keith and Ryan Carpenter. On to the second period, Edmonton scored first. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, assisted by James Neal and Connor McDavid. Only goal of that second period. Third period, game-winning goal scored by Dominic Kubalik, assisted by Jonathan Toews. It was a beautiful play. Toews stole the puck, got it to Kubalik, and he just sniped it over the shoulder of Mikko Koskinen. And the Blackhawks took the lead, and they took the win 3-2. And there I end it with Game 4, because that's where the series ended. The Hawks didn't even let it go all the way to Game 5. I don't know if you were as shocked as I was. I was damn near certain that this thing was going to 5 games if Edmonton did not end it themselves before then. But it was the Blackhawks who didn't let it go all the way. Not sure how, but here we are. They somehow survived giving up the first goal in every game but one, and they also only lost 1 game, so I don't know. I don't know how it happened. I'm hyped about it, but I am also stressed out because now they are in the playoffs. But it is okay because Edmonton didn't get the first overall pick, which was up for grabs to any of the teams who lost in the qualifying round. and it ended up going to the New York Rangers, so at least it is in a different conference, and Alexis Lafreniere will be in the East and not in the West, torturing us for many years to come. That series was pretty ridiculous in my mind, and I can't even say ridiculous in a bad way. Obviously, since the Hawks won the series 3-1, every game was just so fast-paced, which was to be expected going into a series against probably the fastest team in the league, but it's between them or Colorado, definitely. Maybe they're tied there. I didn't think that the Blackhawks defense would be able to keep up with the speed of the Edmonton Oilers. They did pretty well to surprise me there, I would have to admit. Yeah, Edmonton put up a lot of goals. It's just kind of what they do. But our offense came through as well, which is not something we have been able to say very often this past season. So I was thrilled. Definitely very confused after every win. A lot of them were nail-biters that came down to the very last minute. I believe, let me look back at these scores, were all of them except the first two by 1 goal. Yeah, so Game 1 and Game 2 had a 2 and a 3 goal difference. The last 2 games had a 1 goal difference. So, I mean, it was anybody's game, really. And in the end, the Blackhawks pulled it out. And we have to be excited because they're in the playoffs and have a chance at the Stanley Cup. But first, they have to get through Vegas. They got through Edmonton, but that's over now. The qualifying round does not matter anymore. It is time for the actual playoffs. And like I mentioned in the first round, the Chicago Blackhawks, our very flawed, frustrating, depressing at times, frustrating again, Chicago Blackhawks are taking on the Vegas Golden Knights, who in their first year in the league made it to the Stanley Cup final, and they've made the playoffs every other year. Not every other year, but like every year since then. It came down to the final game between Colorado and Vegas to see who would take first in the conference, and whoever that was got the lucky draw of taking on the Hawks. Vegas won that game in overtime, and so here we are, taking on Vegas. Yeah, I still don't really know how I feel about it. It was going to be an incredibly tough matchup either way. Vegas is a very good team. Colorado is a very good team. I likened Colorado to being kind of like Edmonton, but with better goaltending and a lot more depth. So it would have been a very fast team against, again, a very questionable Blackhawks defensive core. But Vegas is basically just well-rounded all around. And the major news going into Game 1 is that Robin Lehner was the confirmed starting goaltender. We should have seen this coming, because who doesn't like a good story? And the Blackhawks traded Lehner at the trade deadline, thinking they had no way to make the playoffs. And they didn't want to re-sign him for whatever reason. Traded him to Vegas to take on the net-minding role alongside of Marc-Andre Fleury. And now we are facing him in the first round of the playoffs, and it's just painful. But what else could have possibly happened? It was just destiny, really. I was surprised that Fleury didn't get the start, just because he's been their man since the franchise was a thing. Robin has won every game he's played for Vegas since he got there, so I guess maybe the decision wasn't that difficult. But again, Fleury's been their guy, so when they announced Lehner as the Game 1 starter, I was surprised but not, and I am still not ready for the discourse on the internet, which will be Corey Crawford versus Robin Lehner, who is better. And of course, the Blackhawks had to lose Game 1. Yeah, maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit here to get to the results of Game number 1. But thankfully, I've stayed off of the internet, mostly because I was without internet or cable for the first day of playoffs due to the terrible storms that ripped through northern Illinois. I hope all of you are safe that are listening to this. I hope your families are safe. They were pretty crazy. Yeah, but I lost cable and internet, so I had to go over to a friend's house who so graciously let me use her internet to stream the game. So that was a thing that happened, and just like going into the Edmonton series, I came up with a list of players to watch when it comes to Vegas, and funny enough, only one of these players ended up notching a point in game number 1, but one of my players is also a goaltender, so they don't end up with points as much. So here we go. We have Alex Tuch, Max Pacioretty, Robin Lehner, and Alec Martinez. Alex Tuch is an absolute monster of a player. He's basically everything you would want in a power forward. He's big, he's strong, he can score like crazy, he's a great skater. I'm glad he's not with Minnesota anymore. I remember watching him with the Iowa Wild up against the Ice Hogs. But of course now we have to face him in round 1. He's the one that won the game against Colorado to secure the matchup against the Hawks. And I would expect as the series goes on, he will have more point totals by his name. The second player, Max Pacioretty, he was a big player that was acquired from the Montreal Canadiens, but he was coming off of an injury, so he didn't play in the round-robin series for Vegas. He was injured, but of course he came back for Game 1. He didn't put up any points. I didn't notice him a whole lot, but he's been a solid player throughout his career. He puts up a lot of goals, so if he can get his game feet going and get up to game speed, then watch out for Max Pacioretty. Third, of course, we have Robin Lehner. That just is self-explanatory, really. He's a fantastic goaltender. He can steal games. He can steal a series. The Blackhawks traded him at the trade deadline. It's basically the narratives that a writer dreams of having. And now the reporters for the Hawks and the Golden Knights have this storyline to rely on if there are boring games in the series. Player number 4, Alec Martinez. Of course, he scored his first point of the postseason against the Blackhawks. It was an assist, but it was on the first goal of the game that was scored by Shea Theodore. And if you've been around the Blackhawks since 2014, when they faced off against the Los Angeles Kings in the Western Conference Final, you will know that Alec Martinez is the guy that scored the overtime goal in Game 7 against the Blackhawks, and I have had a serious dislike for him ever since, and because of that, I know he is going to come out and haunt me. So those are the 4 players to watch for on Vegas. And really, you should be watching out for all of their players because Vegas is a very good team. All of the teams in the playoffs, except the Blackhawks, are very good teams. But here we are. All they can do is play the best that they can, or we hope that's what they are going to do, and take advantage of getting very lucky and being in the playoff picture. So I also have 4 players to watch for the Blackhawks. Much like the qualifying round, player number 1 is Kirby Dach. He looked absolutely fantastic in that series against Edmonton. We can only hope that he will keep that up against Vegas. In game number 1, he wasn't as big of a standout as he was in that first series, but none of the Blackhawks were, so I'm not going to put that on him. We'll see how he progresses as the series goes along, but if he can channel that Edmonton series Kirby Dach, then he is going to be a threat to the Golden Knights, but he has to shoot the puck more. He had the puck on his stick right in front of Robin Lehner, and he looked to pass, and the defender got it and knocked it away. It didn't even result in a shot on goal. That is not going to be acceptable in this series. Player number 2, Dominik Kubalik. As you heard my scoring recap earlier, he had a fairly good series against the Edmonton Oilers. He had a fantastic first game with 5 points, and he came through when it mattered most and scored the series-clinching goal. So are we going to see more of that scoring prowess from Kubalik? We can only hope so, but he is a solid player all around even when he is not scoring. So I look forward to seeing what his play looks like as the series progresses as well. One player who is not really a great all-around player when he is not scoring is Alex DeBrincat, and he is my third player to watch because I'm not even sure he's been on the ice this whole time. I don't know what it's going to take. I'm trying to be gracious and just say as soon as he gets that first goal, that's when they're going to start coming. But he needs to get it soon because I don't know. Maybe I am just negatively biased at the moment toward DeBrincat, and I don't want to be because I really like him as a player, but it seems like the play just dies when he is out there, and he's been on a line with Patrick Kane and Kirby Dach, and it feels like he is holding them back, and that's nothing that you ever want to see out of a player that is paid very well to score goals for your team. Player number 4 to watch for the Chicago Blackhawks is Adam Boqvist. So, I mean, apparently in series number 1, his advanced stats showed that he was actually pretty productive when he was on the ice, but just going off of the eye test for me, I did not think he was very impressive at all. It didn't seem like he had a good series. He left a lot to be desired. I don't know. I don't know if he just needs more time, more seasoning. I feel like maybe if we had a more experienced defender back there that maybe some of these shifts would be a little more positive, but the plus side is the Blackhawks were not meant to be in the playoffs this year, but here they are, and so Boqvist is getting some very good experience going forward. We can't be too mad if the Hawks get booted in round 1. Of course, I will still be angry because that's just who I am as a person, but thinking about it rationally, they weren't supposed to be here, and we get to see more Blackhawks hockey when they could be just sitting at home not playing, and we could be watching all of these other teams instead. So I am happy they're playing, but I do want to see more out of the players on the ice. Now, we did have game 1 yesterday. I am recording this on Wednesday. I felt like the effort put out by the Blackhawks was very uninspired. There just didn't seem to be a whole lot of urgency in their game, which is something that I would have wanted to see from them, especially coming off of that energy boost of winning this series against Edmonton. You'd think, hey, we're in the playoffs, let's come out and give game 1 our best shot so we're not chasing the rest of the way. But that's not what we got. And once Vegas scored their first goal, it just all seemed to go off of the rails. They were keeping up pretty well. For the first period, there were 0 goals scored in the first. But, I don't know, once Vegas got that first one, you just kind of felt that they were going to keep scoring and that things weren't going to go well. And they didn't. We did get 1 goal, and it was a shorthanded goal by David Kampf, just as we all expected, aka nobody expected. It was a good shot. I gotta give him credit for it. I mean, he turned a bad penalty kill situation into a positive, which was rather interesting. The Hawks did go 2 for 2 on the penalty kill, so that was a plus. They did give up 34 shots. Not so ideal. They won the face-off game at 55%. I'm just looking at some of the stats here. They only blocked 12 shots compared to Vegas's 18. They were out-hit because they always are, so that's not even something to really be concerned by. They did have 12 takeaways compared to Vegas's 6. But just going off of watching the game and not reading those stats, I did not see a very good performance from the Chicago team. I did miss the last 10 minutes. I was driving home. I didn't really feel the need to see that one to the end because I knew they were going to lose. But I don't think a whole lot changed in those final 10 minutes. So I want to see a lot more from the Hawks in game number 2, which is Thursday. So tomorrow, probably today when you are hearing this, or it has already happened if you're listening to this after Thursday. I hope that they put out a better performance, hopefully score more than 1 goal, give up less than 4 goals. That would be ideal. But I guess we just have to wait and see. I can't really go off of that game and say what I would have changed, whether that be line combinations or matchups, because I don't know. It bored me. It just bored me. I don't know if it was the pace of the Edmonton series, and then all of a sudden we're playing a team that doesn't rely so much on their speed and more so their all-around solid gameplay. So it didn't seem as fast and just seemed kind of bleh. But I don't know. I was bored. In game number 2, I will pay more attention to which lines are doing what, which players are doing what, and I'll get to watch this one on my television, and I won't have to stream the game, which will also be nice. So that is it for this one. It's not as long as I was expecting it to be. That's probably just based on my mood and being disappointed in this team, so I don't feel the need to talk about them for an hour. Hopefully I will be a little more inspired to have a longer conversation after game 2, but we will see. So again, thank you all so much for listening. If you've listened to this far, please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, would be nice, and leave us a review. We would love to see it. And you can follow us on the social media if you want to do that. I have been mostly live tweeting the games. I didn't yesterday, of course, because I was watching the game on my computer. My phone was dying. Everything was going poorly. But you can follow us on Twitter at VFCenterIcePod or on Instagram at FromCenterIcePod. And I will catch y'all in the next episode. Let's hope for a better game number 2. Alright, y'all. I'll catch y'all next time. Bye! Thank you all for watching. Please hit that subscribe button to catch more From Center Ice content. If you could, hit the like button on this video, maybe share it with a friend or two. And while you're here, check out the podcast playlist and catch up on some old episodes. We will catch y'all next time. Bye!